Hello and welcome to Climate Check with me, Mary Mwiikisa. Now, this is a show that focuses on enhancing climate action for the protection of our environment and planet Earth. Now, today we will be focusing on the environmental impact assessment. We would like to understand what it is, how important it is for our country, Zambia, and of course, how through this assessment we can still develop, but at the same time, protect our environment. I'm your host, Mary Mwiikisa, and the program is brought to you courtesy Strengthening Respect for Environmental Rights project, and this is under HIVO's Southern Africa with its consortium of partners. We take a short break. Join me on the other side. Welcome back to Climate Check. Let's now understand what an environmental impact assessment is, as I will be speaking via phone to Ruth Kamwe, who is Manager Corporate Affairs at the Zambia Environmental Management Agency, ZEMA. Ruth, thank you so much for taking our call on Climate Check.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mary, for having us on Climate Check.
Now, let's understand what an environmental impact assessment, EIA, is.
Okay, thank you very much for that very important question on a very important topic. So when we talk about environmental impact assessment, we are talking about a process used to identify or assess the potential environmental impacts or risks of a proposed project or activity. So the environmental impact assessment helps decision makers to understand the potential effects on the environment and human health from any proposed project, so that they are able to apply mitigation measures and consequently make informed decisions. So that's what an environmental impact assessment is all about.
Now, for a country like Zambia, that obviously is a developing country, we see a lot of projects coming up, we see a lot of investments coming into the country. Why is this important to Zambia?
Yes, it is very important to Zambia. It is a crucial process. Like I mentioned earlier, this is a process that helps us to actually assess the risk that comes with potential development projects. And also, it helps us to protect our environment and natural resources as we undertaking sustainable development. So it also helps us promote stakeholder participation. The public has to be a custodian of all, if not most of the projects that are taking place. So environmental impact assessment does just that.
Now, in cases where you have a project that maybe the community feels it would benefit them, I'll cite an example of the Lower Zambezi National Park, where there was a mine that was supposed to have been put up there, but then eventually the environmental impact assessment said otherwise, and that project was halted. Actually, it had almost started, but some of the community members felt, they were going to get jobs and so on and so forth. Where do we draw the line, and what role do communities play in this process? Do they have a say in the process?
I love that question, Mary. I love that question. So the role of the community in the environmental impact assessment is very cardinal. That's where we have, during the stages of the environmental impact assessment, we have stakeholder engagement. So the communities are consulted. And when the communities are consulted, the communities are the ones that will give us direction on how to proceed. I don't want to refer to any particular project, not even to the projects at the Lower Zambezi. No, but the community are a key stakeholder in environmental impact assessment. That's why we would float adverts as ZEMA, mandated by the law to do just that. Float an advert in our daily papers. If you check our daily papers, you'll find that there are adverts adverts almost every other day, calling for comments, for the public to comment on these proposed projects so that they give us their views. So when they give us their views, their comments, and their views are to the contrary, where they do not, or they suggest that this project should not be undertaken, ZEMA will go by what the law stipulates and do just that.
Okay. And finally, how do you ensure adherence or compliance to the EIAs by these projects, especially those that have been allowed to go ahead with the project?
Thank you for that question. So to ensure adherence and we make sure that the regulations are followed to the letter, we conduct monitoring and inspections. So we enforce the compliance of the environmental impact assessment regulations, which are stipulated in the law. And in some cases where there is non-compliance, obviously we impose penalties for non-compliance. We also provide a lot of guidance and support as far as environmental impact assessment implementation is concerned from our end. We are a partner in development and a very strategic partner. We know that Zambia is a developing country and most of these projects have to be undertaken. So we come in also to ensure that we provide guidance on how this should be done and to provide support, because at the end of the day, we want to live in a developed Zambia in all the sectors that require environmental impact assessments and in all the sectors that require us to protect the environment and manage the environment. And more importantly so, to ensure that we are protecting human life.
Okay. Ruth, thank you so much for making time to speak to us on Climate Check.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mary, for giving us an opportunity.
All right. That is Ruth Kamwi, Manager Corporate Affairs at the Zambia Environmental Management Agency, just helping us appreciate and understand the process of an environmental impact assessment in a country like ours, even as we develop to ensure that we protect the environment. This is Climate Check. On the other side, we will be joining our staffer, Zachariah Nyimbili, as he attended a stakeholders meeting that was convened by the Ministry of Green Economy and the Environment. And this meeting was focused on reviewing the draft statutory instrument on carbon markets. Here's a report.
Ministry of Green Economy and Environment Permanent Secretary Daut Chibamba has urged Zambians, especially the youth, to take active steps in combating climate change and protecting nature resources. Dr. Chibamba was speaking at a stakeholders meeting held at Pamosi Hotel in Lusaka, where government officials, climate experts, and civil society organizations gathered to review draft statutory instrument on carbon markets.
We are grateful to all of you that you have come through to help us finalize this statutory instrument. And on our part, once we are done with this process today, we'll move very quickly working with the Ministry of Justice to finalize the remaining processes. However, this is not the end of the matter. This is just the beginning of the issue. Once the Act is in place and the statutory instrument is finalized, then the question is, what exactly are we doing on the ground in terms of climate change mitigation, in terms of adaptation, and most importantly, in terms of carbon trading? So I will encourage and urge all of you that this is not the end of the road. We're just starting today. So let's remain in this partnership. Let's work together. From time to time, we'll be calling on all of you to consult on one or two things, and please don't tire to come even at short notice. With those few remarks, I wish you successful deliberations, and thank you.
And the Ministry of Green Economy and Environment Director for Green Economy, Ephraim Shitima, says the statutory instrument will not only regulate carbon trading, but also enhance public understanding of Zambia's commitments under the Paris agreement.
We make the act operational. It means all the good provisions that our parliamentarians put in that law become active. We start applying them. And that is very important. I'm sure you know the interest that the carbon market generates. We need to ensure that it is properly regulated. For example, the regulations will outline clearly the benefits to communities, how these benefits to communities should be distributed, and all that. So yes, it's a tool that is helping us to put that very good act into action and ensure that we regulate the carbon market, bring benefits to communities, but also revenue to government.
Meanwhile, climate change expert Dr. Kabwe Mubanga said the statutory instrument was timely.
But if you have an SI that stipulates exactly how some of these issues will be, it's very easy even to assess how much of the benefits are trickling down to the communities. But at the same time, at national level, this is an SI also that allows us to freely be able to engage in trade in carbon credits with other countries. Of course, for a long time, this has been a very difficult thing to do because we have not had a proper foundation of how we can be able to engage in this. So this SI instrument is actually giving us a proper platform, a definition of how this can be done. So we could be able now to do some of these engagements, which could actually generate income for the country, as it were.
The SI, currently under review by the Ministry of Justice, follows the Green Economy and Climate Change Act passed in December 2025. In the same week, a workshop was also convened where the Zambia Climate Change Research Network, ZCCRN co-chairperson Bridget Walia, explained the motivation behind forming the network.
Okay, so the research network on climate change was set up really to bring researchers together. So there is this idea that we have a lot of researchers that are doing research sometimes that other people don't know about. So we want the researchers to work together, to know what everybody is doing, to learn from each other, and then inform policy. So for instance, advise government on policies around adaptation and mitigation, how to include communities, basically to make sure that whatever policies we have are informed by research. It's very important to have policies that are informed by research, because if you don't, you may end up doing wrong things, having interventions that are costly just because you don't know. So really this is our basic focus, to make sure that we have up-to-date research that is informing practice and that is informing policy.
Meanwhile, Principal Climate Change Officer at the Ministry of Green Economy and Environment, Mary Mwiikisa, said the emphasis of the network was to promote community-driven research aimed at building resilience and enhance climate adaptation.
So the emphasis on this community of practice is to develop research with high impact research. Research which is driven by the needs of the community. So they are bringing communities. We had research from Sioma, research from all these areas. So the focus is on the community. We want to build resiliency, for example. We want to build adaptation capacities for the community. So this research is driven by the needs of the community in the first place.
As Zambia advances its climate agenda, platforms like the Zambia Climate Change Research Network are pivotal in turning research into real solutions for communities. Reporting, I'm Zakaria Nyimbeli.
Welcome back to Climate Check, and thank you so much, Zachariah, for that report. Now, we are joined in studio by Mr. Morgan Katati. He is Executive Director, Zambia Institute of Environmental Management, ZIEM, and we'll be focusing on the impact of projects on the environment as we ensure that environmental rights are upheld. Mr. Katati, thank you so much for making time.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much, viewers.
All right. Yeah. Let me first pick your mind on the conversation I had earlier with Zema on the environmental impact assessment. What are your thoughts around that conversation, and how important are these processes?
So this is a principle which says that whenever you are undertaking an activity, you have to identify the risks and then prevent them from occurring. Why this is important is because natural resources, including the whole environmental resource, and ecology and ecosystems, it is treated as a shared resource. So what happens is that whatever resource we have, for example, be it air, it's a shared. We have to share the air between the human beings and also the other developmental needs. We have to share water between human beings and other developmental needs. So if you look at the law, the Constitution of the Republic of Zambia, Article 255, it provides for the rights to clean, healthy, and safe environment. So it is from that angle that the law puts in place the institution mandated, which is ZEMA, but also it provides for rights for everybody. So the role of ZEMA is to balance that right. Yes.
Okay, let's appreciate some of the areas, some of the sectors that require these environmental impact assessments coming from civil society organizations. We have seen even, SMEs setting up projects, companies, but the thought is that, these EIAs are for big companies and not small companies. And so we see some of our people getting away with environmental pollution, for example.
Yes, indeed. The EIA is provided for in the Environmental Management Act. I think it should be particularly Section 29. But then we have the Statutory Instrument 28 of 1997, which we use when we are undertaking an environmental impact assessment. So it has Schedule 1 and Schedule 2. So Schedule 1 says any projects that has characteristics that are provided for in Schedule 1 should undertake an EIA. What are those characteristics? Number one, if you are developing a land which is about 250 hectares, any land 250 hectares and above, whatever activities you are undertaking there, it has to undertake an EIA. Whether it is likely to have an impact on environment, yes or no. For example, carbon projects, somebody is just sequestering carbon from the existing trees.
Yes.
But still an assessment need to be done. Then another one, it requires that anyone with an investment value above $15 million. So if you have above $15 million, you have to undertake an environmental impact assessment, because the quantum of money obviously determines the level of impacts that has to be done.
Okay.
Then the other one is where you go to specificities. For example, if you are building a plant, a chemical plant, producing explosives.
Yes.
So there, even if you have 100 by 100 meter of a plot, you still have to undertake an EIA, because they are chemical involvements. So the chemicals obviously they have high impact. They combine with air molecules, they combine with water molecules, and then they also affect land negatively. So you have to undertake an EIA.
When you're driving around Lusaka, for example, and I use Lusaka because this is where we live and we can relate to the environment,
yes,
you see a lot of gas stations, fueling stations dotted everywhere, even in neighborhoods.
Exactly.
So people will tell you, this fueling station which is here, is it safe in case of an explosion? Because they're just like houses around it. Are they also subjected to the EIA and they are allowed by law to operate anywhere?
All the filling stations or petrol stations, whichever the case, or gas stations, they are required by law to undertake an EPB. An EPB is a short form of an EIA, where through the 7 steps of EIA process, you can do about 5. Okay. You leave 2, and then you be able to still determine what is the potential impacts and also the risks. So those has to be provided for before one applies for a license with ERB.
Okay.
So all of them, they undertake.
As civil society organizations, how are you ensuring that working with relevant stakeholders, the rights of the environment are protected?
The basis upon which civil society use to ensure that you are engaging stakeholders, including state organs, is to ensure that you entrench the rights. The rights of the people need to be provided for. First of all, yes, we know that in the Bill of Rights, there are provisions for, particularly Section 48. It provides for rights to environment. Although there is a caveat to it that the rights for environment which is provided for can only work if you that right is affecting personal lives, meaning that it becomes a private tort, for example, where one's action affects the other person. So at that stage, in that section 48, it provides for one to have their right protected, and where you think that your right is not protected, you have to seek a legal recourse.
Okay. I'll quickly cite an example, even as we wrap up this conversation, of the pollution that happened on the Copper Belt at the mine, the pollution of the Kafue River and the surrounding environment. This is a mining company that underwent an EIA, and they got the clearance and they're operating. Now there's a problem. What happens next in line with the EIA requirements?
Yes. First of all, and I'm giving my personal views based on the assessment on the ground, because we've been there, we work there, we have been working in that area way before the pollution incident happened. So there are two things that happened before the pollution. The EIA was conducted by Sinometo, and this EIA indicated a couple of measures that has to be done and the conditions set by ZEMA. Then at the same time, the same facility, which was a tailings dam, which dredged, unfortunately, it is also regulated by Mine Safety under Mine Safety Act. So the Mines and Mineral Development Act, So the Mine Safety were regulating the engineering part of the dam in terms of dam strength, the holding capacity of the dam and whatnot. What ZEMA regulates there is the content. So ZEMA regulates the content in such a way that the content should not move from the dam to the ambient environment. Ambient environment is outside the regulated area. So that's what happened. So in that case, for the dredging of the dam to happen, it means that there was an oversight where maybe the regulator that was regulating the engineering part didn't monitor that regularly. So at the end of the day, it started cracking, and then eventually the content were released. That's one thing. The other thing is that there could have been an overloading where the company increased productivity or production, and then, for example, a tailings dam with a holding capacity of 15 million liter capacity, they pump maybe 40 million liter capacity. So what happens is that it will dredge. So that is another thing. The other option was that it could be rainfall, combining the water content and then it dredged. So, but whichever the case, all that amounts to one, a violation. Two, it's a pollution, because the pollution is coming from the content. When the content goes outside the ambient environment, which is unregulated, then it becomes an offense under the Environmental Management Act. So basically, we see that the role, who has the responsibility to monitor the dams? So both the Mine Safety Department and ZEMA has. But also the actual responsibility is set on the company itself. Because the company every month, in fact, not every month, I would say every 6 months, they are required to monitor and send the annual returns to both the Mine Safety and ZEMA. So this, there could have been some lapse in one or another for this content to go. But who takes the responsibility? It's the company. The company takes the responsibility for two reasons. One, under the licensing conditions, they have to comply. If the accident happen, even if they call it accident, under the law still that is not an
they have to provide remedial measures.
Exactly, The other one is the content are going to affect other people's livelihood. So that they have to take reparations and also compensations where possible.
This is Climate Check. We have come to the end of this week's program. I'll be back again next week, same time, same channel. Remember to play your part in protecting the environment. It starts from your home into the community and ultimately Mother Zambia. My name is Mary Mwiikisa. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.